Today we are going to do a culminating activity on our physical properties. Now, it's going to be a little experiment about making rock candy. Now you can do this at home, make sure you have parental supervision. Of course, with this quarantine, was not able to get all the things that was necessary, but as always, we improvise, adapt, and overcome. So what you are going to need is some sugar, some water, some sticks, or you can substitute strings for it, some flavoring, and what we are going to do is we are going to teach you how to make your own rock candy at home, and then we're going to discuss why that's happening. Well, remember the other day we were using salt water, and as we can see here, my salt water has been evaporating about, let me do the quick math on it, about 30 mil of the water has been evaporated. It's going to be a nice hot day today. I might sit this thing out and see if we can't get the water to evaporate. But what's happening down at the bottom, you can see the salt crystals beginning to form down at the bottom. Basically, that's what we're going to do, but we're going to do it with sugar. We're going to oversaturate a solution, and then given about a week's worth of time, we're going to grow crystals that you can actually eat. Okay, so we talked about, let's see, it was in March, right before we left, and throughout last week's lesson and the week before, we talked about physical properties of different things. One of the physical properties of water, if you can remember, is that it is the universal solvent. It dissolves everything. Given enough time, it will dissolve almost anything on earth. We're going to use that to dissolve sugar into water, oversaturate it. Now here's the thing, you can only dissolve so much into water before it falls out. For example, our salt. The same thing with sugar, it can only take so much. We can add more to something if we heat it up. If we heat this water, it'll actually be able to hold more of a solute. In this case, our solute, instead of salt, is going to be sugar. So what we're going to do is we are going to dissolve our sugar slowly in hot water. This is the point where you have to have adult supervision here because you're going to be boiling water. Some of you probably can do this on your own, but make sure that you have an adult with you when you do this. I'm going to be using these skewers. Now, if you don't have skewers at home, you can also use just regular string. So I'll show you what we can do and how you can adapt to that. But first, let's talk about what happens with crystals and why they grow. When you have something that's super saturated, that means it has more solute in it than it can possibly hold. When that substance cools down, it's got to go somewhere. It wants to do something. So what it does is it attaches to the other solid particles that are already present there. One of the first steps in this is going to be we're going to create where the salt crystals are going to grow by using this. I'll point that out in a minute. But as your solution cools, that sugar that is dissolved in that hot water has got to go somewhere. So it starts to accumulate molecule by molecule on top of another one. It's almost like it's sticking to it. So it sticks to it and it grows and it grows and it grows. This is something that's going to happen over a week. A lot of times you'll find YouTube videos where they're growing these rock candy, and they'll say, oh, it takes about 3 to 5 days. Minimally, it takes about a week. A lot of times it takes about 3 to 5 weeks sometimes. It just kind of depends on if you want big crystals or small crystals. So when our solution starts to cool and our solute starts falling out, it can do one of two things. It can either fall out down at the bottom, or it can cling on to some solid particles that are already there. That's what we're going to attempt to do to make this rock candy. And so these crystals start building up on one another and grow and grow and grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And with this, it is something that we will eventually be able to eat. So what you need, again, some kind of a glass jar or a regular glass will work. You're going to need like clothespins, like the wooden ones that you can connect up here. I don't have any of them, so I'm just going to have to make do with what I have. You're going to need your sugar, your water, your pan, and your heat source, and then flavoring. You don't have to put flavoring in it. You can grow white sugar crystals and it'll taste like sugar. Or you can do something like, you can put in Kool-Aid, which is what I'm going to do. You can dissolve other kinds of Kool-Aid in there. That's cool too. You can use food coloring to make your crystals a deeper color. You can also use concentrated flavors. Some of your parents might have some of these concentrated flavors. They're little jars like this. You can get like peppermint or cherry or any kind of, they make all different kinds. And you just add a little drop in here. I'm going to be using Kool-Aid because that's what I have. All right, so we'll get started in just a minute. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to soak your skewers, or if you don't have skewers, like just regular string will work also, in water. Do it for about 10 minutes or so. And what you're going to want to do is take your skewer and we just kind of want to roll it. Roll it in the sugar. Now it doesn't have to be too much there. So, there we go. That, and we're going to set that aside and let it dry. That is what our crystals are going to grab onto from the solution once it starts cooling down. So what we're going to do is repeat however many steps that you want to do, however many of these that you want to do. I'll do 2. I'm just going to coat this. And while we're doing other things, just going to sit it there and let it dry. All right, so what I've done is I'm measuring out 4 cups of sugar, and I measured out and started to boil 2 cups of water. Now, the key to this part, I want to reduce this heat just a little bit. The key to this is by putting in your sugar slowly. Add a little bit more heat. Just a little bit at a time. See how it's, once I put it in there, you see it drop to the bottom. But then you stir it around a little bit and it gets dissolved. You're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, that's a lot of sugar and that's not very much water. Exactly. But as I continue to stir in the sugar, we're making a super soluble solution. It's all that sugar, and this is the wonderful physical property of water, is how much stuff it can actually hold. It can hold a lot of sugar. You can actually make your tea, your iced tea, really, really sweet. So much sweet that it's hard to drink it. But if you're drinking hot tea, you can put even more sugar in it and it'll dissolve even more. I'm just adding a little bit at a time. Right now I've got about 1 3/4 cup of sugar already in it. Still need a little bit more to go. See how cloudy it's getting? It's really kind of cool. Right now you've got just a whole bunch of sugar water. So that was my first 2 cups. My second 2 cups I had measured out and put into here. And some of the water is being boiled away, so you want to keep watch. And that's why you do a little bit at a time. As soon as you start seeing the granules at the bottom of this pan, you're pretty much done. It's as much as it's going to get, even as hot as this water is getting. But I've still got a ways to go here. Alright, as we are getting close, and you can tell when you're close because the clumps are getting harder and harder to break up and dissolve. So we're at that point. Couple of things that you want to, I'm going to go ahead and reduce the heat all the way off on this and continue to stir. 2 of the things that are very important. Elsie, you shot your bone hole. Alright. Yeah. 2 things that are very, very important when you're doing this is to, 1, make sure that all of your glassware and your cookware are completely clean. You've cleaned them thoroughly. And the second thing is you want to continually stir your solution. You don't ever want to just leave it here. You're going to wind up ruining the pan and burning all the sugar down at the bottom there. And when it turns brown, it's very, very difficult to get off the pan. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to pour this into our jar, and we're going to let it cool down naturally. And that is, this stuff is so hot, you don't want to touch it, you don't want to get it on you because it could really, really burn. So we're going to let it sit there for a little while, cool down, and then we'll get ready to prepare and make all of our other things. If you want to add a flavoring, now's a good time to do it. So hold on, let me grab my flavoring. I'm going to use cherry Kool-Aid. When you're doing this, when this stuff solidifies into crystals, it's going to be about 1/3 the color that it is now. So it's going to be a really, really light pink. If that's the case, and you have like food coloring, and I don't know if I do or not. If you had food coloring, you can add some food coloring in there to make it actually darker if you really want to. But that was a good squirt. I'm going to give it one more squirt. Now I'm just going to let it sit and cool down to room temperature. I mentioned before that you can do this with string. Well, I tried to find string, and of course, I have teenage boys, so that means I don't have string or pretty much duct tape in my house anytime. So let's just pretend that we had a string. So what you're going to do is you're going to soak that string exactly like I soaked the skewers. Make sure your string is clean though. Soak it in water, and then run it through some sugar that's on a table. And what you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a pencil. And let's pretend this is your string right here. You're going to tie your string to the pencil, making sure not to touch the bottom when we pour our liquid in here. We want to make sure that our sugar crystals are not touching the bottom, because if they do, then the crystals that are going to form up at the bottom down here, they're going to start building up on one another, and they'll attach to the bottom of your stick, and it'll be almost impossible to get this thing out and to eat it later. Then you're just going to have to get like a spoon or a knife and just crush it up into little bits of like sugar glass, which would be cool anyway, but whoops. That would be cool anyway. Still got plenty of sugar right there. But it's more fun doing the rock candy thing. So you would just put it right there. So, and I don't have any like clothespins, like I said. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using Gorilla Tape to attach mine to another skewer. I'm going to wrap it, and just to make sure that it stays right in the center. So I'll show you that once I get it set up. Like I said, a clip would have been easier, but I don't have one. So, and there's no going to the store to get supplies. So this is what I came up with. In order to dangle our stick with sugar inside our jar, what I'm going to wind up doing is using cardboard with a hole poked in it. I'm going to find my depth to make sure that it's not touching the ground there. And then I'm going to mark this with a pencil. Unfortunately, this pencil does not have a point to it. I'll mark it with a pencil, and then I'll create a stop with duct tape. Just wrap it around there so that it can't go down any further. And once I get this all fixed up, I'll show you what it looks like. Adapt and overcome. There we go. And that's what I'm going to use right there to keep this thing from touching the bottom. Just a piece of cardboard, a little duct tape, and a stick. That right there is quarantine level engineering. Oh, as we're watching this stuff cool, still pretty hot. Out. Still pretty hot. So what you may be asking is, okay, so why can't we just pour it right now into our jar with our little stick? I'll walk over here. Hey, Elsie. Hello, Elsie. Why can't we just pour it right now into our little jar with our little stick and begin our process? Well, if you did that, you kind of defeat the purpose of the supersaturation. See, what's happening now is, seeing that stuff right there is super saturated with sugar. Now I'm letting it cool, because if we just poured it right back in here, what's going to happen to those crystals? If you said these crystals on our stick are going to dissolve, you are right. So we're waiting for our solution over there, our supersaturated Kool-Aid solution, to cool so that it will not dissolve our sugar on these sticks. Boom. There it is. This is what it's going to look like. We're going to have our red liquid up to about right there. And then it will start to grow. We may even see some growth on it today. I don't know, but we'll find out. All right, so we're back. It's been cooling now for, I don't know, an hour, maybe, something like that. Anyway, we're ready to go ahead and start pouring this stuff in here. Come here, baby Yoda. Put baby Yoda over here. There we go. All right, so remember, this is our culminating activity for physical properties. Let me show you another really cool physical property. As I pour our mixture in here, I'm going to kind of pour it down the straw and see how it, or down the stick, see how it stays on the stick. That's called surface tension. It's a property of liquids. You'll also remember that we talked about surface tension. And that was Mr. Williams texting me. So that's pretty cool. We'll do about that much right there. We talked about surface tension before we left school of water. You know, one of the things that you can do with surface tension is you can pour a glass of water and it just goes over the lip. It actually goes over the jar or your glass of water. That's because these water molecules, they want to stay together so much that you can actually pour it over and it's not going to spill over. It's pretty cool. And that's kind of the same thing here. It's going along a trail right here. So it sticks to it, and I don't know if you could see it or not, but it was kind of winding its way down. That was pretty neat. All right, so we have our mixture, our super saturated sugar water with Kool-Aid, and it smells just wonderful.
After our last smelling experience.
Oh yeah, this is much more pleasant. Okay, so I kind of devised this. Remember I said you could use a string and maybe a pencil or a straw to hold it in place while you put it down here. You can use these sticks and you can use your clothesline pins. I don't have any, and it's quarantine, so I had to make do. So I cut a hole in a piece of cardboard, made a little stopper so that it won't go too far down, measured it out, and now I'm going to put that in there. Notice that it is not touching the walls, nor is it touching the bottom. And Wilhelm scream again. Now we're going to leave it like this. And we're going to check its progress in about 3 days. Normally this would take about a week, maybe longer. The longer you wait, the bigger the crystals grow. So what is happening now? Well, what is happening, and you can see just a little bit of crystals forming on some of the sides of this where it's cooled down. It's super saturated. It's very thick. It's a viscous fluid, the viscosity. That's another physical trait. That means how thick something is. It's very thick. It's not like water at all with that sugar in it. It's really kind of syrupy. So what's going to happen now, it's super saturated, and as it cools, that extra solute that was in there, the sugar, that extra sugar is going to start falling out of the solution, out of the solvent, which is the water. Just like a few days ago, and oh man. Since I last showed you this, we had a dive bomber go in there, and now he's taking a saltwater nap, little bug net or something. But remember when we first put this over there, it was completely dissolved. That's because we had about 150 mil of water. Now, so far, we've evaporated a whole lot of water, and because that solute doesn't have anything to be dissolved into, it falls out. So as this water continues to evaporate, more and more the salt is going to come out of this water until there's nothing left but salt crystals down here. what is happening here is that these little sticks already have the beginning of where the crystals are going to attach themselves. So as it falls out of suspension in this in this solution, they will begin to attach to these crystals on here and begin to grow. And the longer it cools, the bigger the crystals are going to get. So we could probably eat this in a couple of days, though we'd just have a skinny little stick of rock candy. But instead, we're gonna wait at least a week to see what it looks like. Remember, it's 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. So if you're gonna make a small batch of this, you can use 1 cup of water and two cups of sugar. I made mine, and I'm probably just gonna go ahead and make 1. Because my jars are big and I can't go to the store and buy more jars. So now that it's here and now that it's done, I'm gonna put this in kind of a safe place and check its progress every now and again. I may even kind of tape up the sides a little bit with some saran wrap, just to keep the bugs from dive bombing it and the ants from, waking up after the winter and deciding, oh, hey, I smell sugar, I'm gonna go get that. No, we don't want that to happen. So put this in a safe place. Again, this is some of the physical properties of a solution. Tomorrow, I will probably do the video for the phenomenon on chemical properties and chemical changes. So stay tuned for that and wash your hands.